All right, so I've got this is week 10 of the weekly sonneteer, and I'm kind of flip flopping between older and more modern sonneteer. It seems like the last few weeks. Today I'm going to give you one by William Wordsworth, and Wordsworth lived from I would say Wordsworth lived from 1770 to 1850. So uh, if you're thinking, American history there, the American Revolution was in 1776, right? And then the French Revolution shortly thereafter. And so that he was from 1770 to 1850. Um, you know, Wordsworth, in a way, he's kind of a father of modern poetry because uh, prior to Wordsworth, most poetry was about great, lofty themes. Celebrating love is like this lofty thing, or patriotism, or talking about great events in history. But Wordsworth comes along, and he's not the first of the major romantic poets, which Wordsworth belongs to the Romantic era in European literature. And so he's not William Blake would arguably be the first great romantic poet, so to speak, but Wordsworth becomes the most important romantic poet, and it's largely because he just transforms the way we think about poetry. In a book that a book of poems he compiled with a friend called Lyrical Ballads. He wrote the introduction, the preface to this book, and in the preface to Lyrical Ballads, which was Wordsworth's first big hit, the poetry in there, he says poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. So what is poetry? It's just spontaneously, without even thinking about it. It's just boom, there it is. It just comes out of you. The spontaneous overflow of just these powerful feelings that you have inside of you. Um, Wordsworth kind of reinvents English poetry and turns it into like this intensely personal thing, intensely personal self expression. And today, a lot of people just assume, well, of course, that's what poetry is. That's self expression, you know? And it's just letting your feelings gush out, right? Yeah, but before Wordsworth, people really didn't think this way about poetry. Definitely not in Europe. Poets didn't think this way about poetry, and conceivably in some other cultures, they might have, but we largely have Shakespeare to thank for our idea these days that it's about self-expression, and it's about just the overflow of your feelings, right? Pouring out there. Now, that doesn't mean that, like, a lot of people today are tempted to think, well, you shouldn't work too hard at poetry because then it feels fake. You should just let your emotions spill out, however they come out, and then you send it into the publisher or whatever, right? Um, not everybody thinks like that. Some people realize that no, to come up with something that's quality, you can't just gush it out onto the page. You then need to make it into a work of art. But certainly Wordsworth realized that it wasn't just about the overflow of powerful feelings. Afterwards, often it you had to tweak it, you had to shape it into something beautiful. Regarding the Wordsworth's themes, um, he talked a lot about childhood and about the beauty of nature. One of his famous lines, he said, "The child is father of the man." And so the child is father of the man. He was always trying to get back to his childhood, to remember that golden age of childhood when, as he saw it, children are just these wonderful people, right? And that all depends on your perspective of human nature, of course. But he was trying to get back to that and trying to get back to his memories of being out in nature, because he spent a lot of time out in nature as a child, and then later on he got away from the city and got back into nature, and he was like, nature is my teacher, right? But by the way, if you want to go back over some of this stuff, it's actually in a PowerPoint slide in our class PowerPoint if you're in my World Lit class. So that's all kind of background for you. One other thing that I really have Wordsworth to thank for is that he sparked a revival of sonnet writing. That they were kind of on the downslope when Wordsworth came along, and Wordsworth wrote 500 sonnets. And so he really kind of like, stuck the cattle prod in the sonnet movement and got that rejuvenated. And so I am thankful to the man for that. So today we are going to look at one of his sonnets, one of my favorites by Wordsworth. As usual, the link to this sonnet is there right under the video, so that you can open that up if you want to read along. The title of this sonnet, a lot of sonnets, the authors got lazy, which personally I'm like, a poem should have a title. But a lot of sonnets and other poems have been written. The title is just the first line because they didn't give you a title for it. So this, if you want a title, this sonnet is titled, "The World is Too Much with Us." The world is too much with us, late and soon. Getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon. This sea that bears her bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours, and are upgathered now like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. It moves us not. Great God! I'd rather be a pagan, suckled in a creed outworn. So might I, standing on this pleasant lea, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn. Have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his wreathed horn. All right, let me read that for you again. The world is too much with us. The world is too much with us, late and soon. Getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon. This sea that bears her bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours, and are upgathered now like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. It moves us not. Great God, I'd rather be a pagan, suckled in a creed outworn. So might I, standing on this pleasant lea, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn. Have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his wreathed horn. Okay, so let's look at this poem. It's iambic pentameter. The world is too much with us, late and soon. Getting and spending, we lay waste our powers, right? And so he plays around with it. Powers is actually two syllables, and he kind of is like, well, if you read it fast enough, it's just one syllable, right? And so getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Read it quickly enough, and it sounds like it fits the iambic pentameter. And so he's not super careful, but he mostly is sticking to his iambic pentameter. His 5 feet in a row. A foot is like those two syllables together. It's also called an iamb, right? So the world is a foot or an iamb, which is 2 syllables together. I'm reviewing a bit here what we talked about a long time ago. 2 syllables together, the first being unstressed, and the second syllable, world, being stressed. The world is too much with us, late and soon. So that's a line of iambic pentameter. 5 I ams in a row, right? So just a little review there in case, it's been a while. Um, and of course, again, what is a sonnet? It's traditionally 14 lines of iambic pentameter, which this is, right? And we've got, I'm not going to bore you with a whole review of everything we talked about, right? But you've got, this is, I believe, I'm thinking it's tune, worn, forlorn, Lee, Seahorn. So what does he do with the rhyme scheme here? Okay, you got ABBA, soon rhymes with boon, powers rhymes with hours. So ABBA, then CDDC, moon and tune rhyme with hours and flowers. And oh my gosh, do you get this? Actually, soon, boon, moon, and tune all rhyme. So it's more like ABBA, ABBA. And so he's working hard at this, right? He's not just content to rhyme each quatrain, each set of 4 lines, but he's like, no, I'm going to repeat the rhyme in the second quatrain, which is a lot of rhymes to come up with, to put it simply. Uh, so you got ABBA, ABBA, and then he comes down. You've got B, Lee, and C rhyme, and then worn, lorn, and horn rhyme. And so he kind of mixes up. So, as far as rhyme schemes go, he's kind of working with. He's working with an Italian sonnet here, really the Petrarchan structure. You've got the 8 lines followed by the 6 lines, right? I believe the octet followed by the sestet, 8 lines followed by 6 lines, and you really do have a switch between that 8th line and the 9th line, where it kind of switches themes. He switches what he's doing with the poem, which is key to to a Petrarchan or Italian sonnet, right? Um, so that's kind of the structure of this. Let's work our way through it. World is too much with us, late and soon. So he's like, we care too much about the things of the world, about the little things of life, whether late and soon. I struggle a little bit like interpreting that phrase, but whether we're old or young, or whether we're old or young, we're just too concerned with the little things of life. What are these little things? Getting and spending. We lay waste our powers. We're just all the time worried about earning money, right? And about spending money. We just spend all our evenings clicking on Amazon, looking for stuff to buy, right? Getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Laying waste our powers, we just burn up our energy. We waste our energy, our abilities, just getting and spending. Little we see in nature that is ours. We don't take the time to look at nature. We don't take the time to enjoy it. Nothing in nature belongs to us in the sense of we've enjoyed it. We've partaken of it, right? It reminds me of, well, let me finish this last line of this quartet. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon. So we've given our hearts away to the mundane, everyday things of life, and we've forgotten the beauty of the world, right? A sordid boon. A boon is a gift that you give to someone. A sordid is just nasty. He's like, we've given our hearts away. It's terrible, It's a sad gift that we gave our hearts to something that doesn't fulfill, to just getting and spending, right? All this vaguely reminds me of there's the famous American artist Georgia O'Keeffe. She initially made her name painting flowers, and she would paint them really big, and um, the critics would ask her questions like, a lot of people thought that like her flowers being so big kind of looked like, excuse me, like, vaginas or something, and they were like, is this about sex, um, and her response was, this is not about sex, this is just a flower, but she said, the problem is, she said, what I'm trying to do is, and she was from New York, and she was like, people in New York, they go about their business all day long. They're so busy, they never stop to pay attention to the flowers. And so what I'm trying to do here, I'm not, trying to talk about sexual repression or anything. She's like, I'm trying to paint the small things of nature so big that people who are just getting and spending all day will stop and pay attention and realize the beauty in the world around them, right? Okay, that was random. That was an aside. Back to the point. Second quartet. This sea that bears her bosom to the moon. Look at the sea. Look at the sea with its glistening, shiny sea bosom, bearing its bosom to the moon because it's like, oh, moon, I love you so much. The sea is paying attention to nature, right? Even if we're not. Sea that bears her bosom to the moon. The winds that will be howling at all hours. Wordsworth's like, listen, pay attention to this. The wind, it's always blowing. Do you ever go outside? Do you ever listen to it, right? The winds will be howling at all hours, and are up gathered now like sleeping flowers. He's like, although at this moment, the winds happen to be still as I'm out in nature paying attention to it. It's like they've been gathered up like flowers that fold their petals at night and go to sleep for a while, right? But he says, he's talking about all this beauty, all this wonder in nature, and he's like, for everything, we are out of tune. We're like an instrument that is out of tune to all the beauty of nature, right? He's like, it moves us not. Nature doesn't move us. It doesn't excite us. It doesn't stir up feelings in us. Because again, we're just obsessed with getting and spending and wasting our strength and our abilities, for everything, we're out of tune. It moves us not. And then he's like, great God, um, I would rather be a pagan suckled in a creed outworn. Here's where he gets a little edgy as far as political correctness goes. Of course, not political correctness in his day, but in our day, anybody who was not a Christian, at the time was referred to as a pagan. Anybody who didn't believe in an established religion, right? And even some people who did believe in established religions, but was considered a pagan. And so Wordsworth was like, I would rather be a pagan, suckled in a creed outworn, suckled like a little baby pagan, or like a little baby, sucking the milk of a belief that is outworn, that we've kind of thrown off, kind of like the Greeks used to believe in Zeus and Aphrodite and all of this, and by Wordsworth's time, everybody realized all of that was just most people realized that was just mythology, and didn't take it seriously anymore as a belief system. But Wordsworth's like, I would rather be one of those people. I'd rather be a pagan, suckled in a creed outworn. A creed is a belief system. I'd rather be a pagan suckled in a creed outworn. Why would I rather be that than a Christian living in modern England? Because so might I. So might I means this is why I would rather be a pagan suckled in an outworn creed. Because if I was a pagan suckled in a creed outworn, then I might be standing on this pleasant lea, this jut of land sticking out facing the ocean. I could stand on this jut of land facing the ocean, and I could get a glimpse of what would make me less forlorn. I could get a glimpse of what would make me less sad, i.e., what would make me more happy, more joyful, which is I might see Proteus, the Greek god, rising out of the sea. Or I might hear Triton, another one of the gods of mythology. I might hear Triton, another sea god, blowing his wreathed horn. Wreathed means it's got like seaweed hanging off of it. His seaweed is wreathed around the horn, right? And so basically, he's kind of revolting against. It's like in his day in England, everybody, is most people are professing to be Protestant Christians and to have some kind of religious belief, but really he's like, "Well, we don't believe in anything anymore." He felt other than just getting and spending money. And he's like, if I'm just gonna have the facade, just the outward show of believing in something when in reality I'm part of a culture that's totally lost touch with nature and with beauty. Um, he's like, I'd rather go back to something that's been disproven, to some outworn creed if it meant that I could stare at nature again and just be blown away by the wonder of it, by the beauty of it. Almost like I was in the presence of a god or something, Proteus or Triton blowing his sea horn, right? Coming up out of the sea and blowing his horn. Um, uh, and of course, from a very personal perspective, I don't see, Christian faith that way, religious belief and religious faith that way. But I just love the concept that he's like, what are you living for, right? Are you just obsessed over little things in life that one day when you're on your deathbed, you're gonna realize you were just wasting time, or are you really sucking in the not sucking in and also giving out? So not just getting but also spending. Are you getting and spending stuff that's not important, or are you getting and sharing with others? Are you bringing in and sharing out the wonders of the really wonderful things of life? And for me, ultimately that would be God. In my relationship to him and to others who believe. But for Wordsworth, that's also, and what he's emphasizing is here is it's just the wonder of the natural world around him, right? So that's the world is too much with us. All right, give me your thoughts there in the comment box. See you next week.